clear the importance for exposure therapies and why it really is effective. And it's great to see that clinicians have been doing this for decades with all different types of technology. You mentioned YouTube, and we talked with probably 1,000 therapists over the last 2 years, and it's amazing how many therapists have created different playlists of YouTube videos for everything that I never even imagined would be an anxiety, like fear of vomiting. The number of therapists that have sent me their playlists of YouTube videos of people vomiting and say they use this all.
Vomit recipe.
But I thought I would start with the elephant in the room. Why am I limping here? And teach you all that our bones are not as strong as they were when we were kids. Be aware of those trampolines. Even if you land right in the center, you might shatter your leg and need a 17-inch titanium rod going through it. And if you have a fear of trampolines, you can find a Limbix therapist near you with the Limbix trampoline experience we're working on. But something that's really amazed me as I've been researching VR for mental health care is that this is not a new paradigm for treatment. Although VR seems like a really new technology, people have been proving and validating the efficacy of VR for a pretty wide range of mental health care issues, everything from anxiety, trauma, phobias, and even depression. Only difference is they've just been doing it at really small scales, at really high cost in university settings. And one of the reasons for that is that the technology has been really hard to use up until recently. But we've come a long way recently with these handheld headsets that you don't need to be counterbalanced with a whole brick, where you can buy one for just a couple $100 and they're really easy to use. And it's when we recognize that this is an amazing treatment paradigm and the technology is ready to go to market that we created Limbix. So Limbix is a diverse group of engineers, we have a neuroscientist, a psychologist, designers, and we founded the company with the principle that we want to take this amazingly effective tool and empower therapists to make their patients better, because this is a really underserved population and this is a treatment that has been shown to be incredibly effective. So we started out creating tools for private practice therapists. And one of the reasons for that is just really a single decision maker. You can get the tech into their hands immediately. They can start giving you feedback and testing it with patients. So we created a free product which used a Daydream headset and connected to a website where the therapist would log into. And from that website, the therapist could see everything the patient sees, and with one click control and customize the environment. And immediately we got amazing feedback from the therapists. It was really helping in their practice, treating patients. The therapists got all over the TV, and we got a lot of wonderful press. We were on the front page of the APA Monitor in Psychology and the New York Times, and that really helped us with our launch. But the best feedback we got was from patients. And this really reminds me of what Dr. Hong was saying, where it's not the actual event that is the worst thing. It's what you've built up this event to be like in your mind. And when patients actually go into it in VR and say, oh wow, that's all it is, it's really, it's a pivotal moment for them when they've done something that they didn't think they could actually do before. And when we get the emails coming back that someone actually hopped on the plane, not just in VR, but they went on that business trip or to visit their family, that's just incredibly rewarding, something that they couldn't do for decades of their entire life, that they suddenly felt empowered to. One of our more commonly used experiences is something that we call the teleporter. And with this, we leverage all of the imagery from Google Maps and Google Street View, and we enable the therapist to just enter in a patient's address. It could be their childhood home, it could be the location where they were in a car accident or a victim of some other trauma, or maybe they have an anxiety about an upcoming business trip, maybe they need to travel to Shanghai and are really scared. Well, with Google Maps, Google Street View, you can just pop a patient all along through the airport, you can have them land in Shanghai, you can put them outside their hotel or in front of the WeWork where they have to give this talk tonight and they're really anxious about that. And this is so customizable to that individual patient that it's been one of the more commonly used experiences. We also create our own experiences, and there's two very different ways to create experiences with VR. You can either create a video game-like models, as you see on the right, or you can use real-world imagery and cameras. And that's Limbix's specialty. We focus on real-world capture. And for things where there's a in particular, social anxiety, where you want to make eye contact, and if you're at a party, and or if you're scared of an interview or a dating scenario, or if you're someone with Asperger's or autism, being able to modulate how realistic someone is. It's a fundamentally different experience making eye contact with a real person versus a CG character like what you see on the right. One of the first scenes that we started filming was for a fear of driving that you mentioned earlier. And that's one of the more common phobias, and I learned it's also a really big problem for veterans. Veterans have a massive increase in I think it was a 30% increase in their likelihood of experiencing a car accident after returning from war. Just the mindset of how they're driving, and they're just not driving defensively, but driving almost offensively, worried about, or maybe it is a different type of defensive driving, but it's just in the wrong mindset, not safe. So we focused on driving phobia at first. And you can imagine if you're creating a 3D model, you need to build the entire city, you need to build every car, every pedestrian, every leaf on every tree. And on these mobile VR headsets, it's very hard to get them to run well. So we started by, so we built essentially a street view vehicle to create our fear of driving experience. Here's some comparisons to Limbix's with real-world imagery going on the Bay Bridge and some rendered experiences. So here's me and my buddy John from Limbix, and this is our prototype collection rig. We took just a consumer-grade 360 camera, put it on this bicycle to prototype our first real-world capture. And it worked great, except that as you're going around turns, as John was leaning on his bike, the whole car would feel like it was getting up on two wheels. So we borrowed one of our investors' convertibles, upgraded our camera, and started capturing some better imagery. So we have 5 cameras pointing in different directions, and we stitch these together to create panoramic images. And when you're stitching these images together, lots of technical considerations, but you want to ensure the images line up so you get these ghosting artifacts that don't appear in the real world, but appear in a lot of VR experiences. So you got to pack your cameras close together and try and estimate the geometry, and there's a lot of interesting algorithms and work to do in this space. We then take a 3D model of the car, and we project all of the panoramic images that we've captured. We project it through the 3D model and off of the mirrors and right back to the viewer so that they can see the motorcyclist sneaking up behind them or the ambulance coming from behind. So here's an example of a driving experience going over the Bay Bridge. With Limbix, you can easily customize where the patient is driving. Some patients have specific fears of bridges or tunnels. And as you can see, you can make it rain as well. There's this, a lot of people have this dichotomy or this false choice where you can either have computer-generated worlds that are fully customizable, or you can have real-world capture, but it's not really editable. And that's not really true. And Hollywood proves that all the time with all their visual effects. And we have a lot of examples of that in Limbix. So just to focus on one, here we want to add the experience of driving or weather or night effects to the driving. If you look at what actually a dropper brain is doing, it acts as a small little lens. And if you can look at what is the surface of the glass when rain is going on it, then you can simulate those rain effects. So we have this simulated rain, and if we play that in front of the actual layer of the video from the driving, the rain will trigger on in a second. It creates an incredibly realistic, I promise you it looks better in VR. You can try it at the end of the talks tonight. But from the tablet, this enables a therapist to really customize the experience for their patients. You can start someone out on Palm Drive on Stanford, where it's just these tree-lined streets, no pedestrians, very easy. Then you can take someone to Market Street right here in San Francisco before you have them driving at night or in inclement weather. With exposure therapy, you want to start someone out where they're comfortable and then take them above and beyond where they actually go in the real world. So if you have a patient with a fear of flying, you'd start them out doing a normal takeoff, then you could do a takeoff in inclement weather, and eventually you can even put a patient in a fighter plane. We have 360 videos where they're doing these loops in fighter planes, and a patient who does that, they feel like, oh, if I can feel confident on a fighter plane like that, then I can get on this regular Boeing plane, no problem. So being able to take someone above and beyond, even if someone has no desire to ever drive at night or in rain, if they really just want to be able to go to work in the morning and not have to sleep in the parking lot in front of their office, it's still beneficial to push someone to that next level.
this is not animated characters, are they?
That's it. Then we call this real world capture. So this is actual environment, and this is what's going to produce a real sense of presence, the feeling like you're there.
And it's amazing because I can actually see my presentation, real people in a boardroom looking at me. So the whole point of this, doctor, is that.
So here you can see the therapist interface for this public speaking scene where you can change all different variables. You can change, this was our old website, now we have a tablet controls for this. But you can see that there's controls for, are you standing or sitting in front of the crowd? Are we dressed in formal clothing or in casual clothing? Are we really engaged and listening and acting positively, or are we acting negatively in response to your presentation? And to accomplish this, we went to our lawyer's office, we grabbed the suits out of our closets that we only put on once a year, and we filmed this multiple different ways. So here we are, the whole Limbix team, paying attention, acting positively, and here we are wearing suits, a bit less engaged, giving you the stare down.
Here, I can ask patients to practice conversations with strangers.
We don't have great actors at Limbix, so you'll recognize me in a lot of the scenes. But this is a creation for people with social anxiety. Just going to a bar, having a conversation, or ordering a drink, or returning a drink, sending it back, are really hard for a lot of people. We've created these experiences where people can go inside and practice having these conversations. And to create them, we build them in layers to help us make anything happen everywhere. Rather than filming everything at every location, we film actors in front of green screens, like this handsome actor here, and then we can put them in any different environment. So that sample you saw, that had images from Stanford's campus, as well as this bar in Palo Alto. And there's Alex, our virtual therapy coach. She was filmed in front of a green screen, and we can put her anywhere. So she can practice that same exercise with you, whether you're at an airport, in a bar, or in front of an elementary school. And when you build things in layers, that also enables you to do different kinds of customization. So here we are in an elevator. There's actually no elevator here. This is a computer-generated elevator. We're all captured in front of green screens, and that city in the background, that's rendered from Google Earth. So you could use this for fear of heights, or if someone's claustrophobic, or has a social anxiety, you might want to change how big is the crowd, not just how high up is this elevator, or is it a glass elevator. Something else that's key to our technology is that we've created these interactive scenes, which is like a choose-your-own-adventure story, where let's say you're at a bar, someone can offer you a drink. If you say, oh no, I'm not drinking tonight, they could keep pressuring you. So if someone has an addiction, you can practice those refusal skills in lots of different settings, as Janie was saying. So to do this, we use voice recognition, we realize what the user's saying, we transition between different videos very quickly to give you that seamless experience of you having a conversation in different environments with real characters. And we partner with different researchers at all top universities. And the way we do this is for every different disorder that we're trying to create a treatment for, whether it's a social anxiety or an eating disorder or PTSD, we identify the experts at different universities, many of whom have been creating VR experiences for this treatment since before I was even born. And we're trying to take those protocols that they've already proven to be effective, modernize them, and get them onto our platform. So I want to show you just one example of that. This is a really amazing paper that came out of Harvard University, researcher Dr. Schleider. What amazed me most about this is that it's a single session intervention. Kids will come in when they're teenagers and they click through what looks like a PowerPoint presentation, and there's 2 screenshots on the left from this presentation. It tells you basic facts about what's known as a growth mindset, if you've heard that term, just about how we are not stuck being the same person for life. We can change, we can become the kind of person that we want to be. If you always get fights with your sister, you don't have to be that way forever. The two of you can become best friends. And they showed this content, just this self-guided PowerPoint presentation, to kids once. It took them about 20-30 minutes to click through. And then they interviewed the children 3 months later, 6 months later, and 9 months later, as well as their parents. And both the children and the parents reported sustained levels of improvement after 9 months. Both the child self-reporting and the adult saying that these students seemed less depressed, less anxious, and communicated better with their family. So we contacted these researchers and we said, this is amazing. We can't believe that your seemingly dry content here was so incredibly effective. And with them, we created a VR protocol, which we're doing post-production on now, and we'll send back to the university researchers to evaluate the exact same way they did their other protocols. So for this, we didn't want to just do a trivial translation of this. So I was in Seattle last month, and we hired child actors at a school, and we were filming these real experiential scenarios where you can, I'll give you a quick preview.
Right? So you say hello and smile. But instead of saying hello back to you, he just walks right by. How do you think that?
Oh, Christo. So we filmed this 2 ways actually, because we wanted to be able to personalize this experience for each user. So early on in the experience, you identify your gender and your age, and based on how you identify, that's the character that's speaking to you most of the time, saying, oh, on my first day of school, I didn't have many friends, but by the end of the year, it was totally different for me, making the whole experience a bit more relatable. And we're taking this content and we're packaging it into what we believe is the easiest to use VR experience. Early on, I'm a technologist, not a therapist, is my background. And early on, I thought what was really going to matter is that we have the highest resolution experiences and the best fidelity. And I learned that pretty quickly that was not the most important factor. It had to be amazingly easy to use for all of our users. So that early screenshots that I showed you where we had a website that therapists would log into, that was a non-starter for a lot of organizations and clinics where they didn't have internet access. And using a Daydream phone, then you have to pop into a headset, that's just too many moving parts. They were less interested in, oh, I want galvanic skin response sensors and heart rate variability. They just wanted something that worked every time. It was so easy to use. So that's how we created this, or why we created this VR kit, where it doesn't require Wi-Fi. As soon as you turn on the headset and the tablet, they automatically connect over Bluetooth. As soon as you turn on the tablet, you don't get a bunch of icons for the Android launch screen. Instead, it immediately boots into Limbix, and you see immediately what the patient sees and can control everything with one click. We wanted to remove every login, every menu, because of who our users are, and they really just want to focus on the treatments and making the patients better and not charging and all the additional wires and things. So with that, we're a small team in Palo Alto. If you have acquisition offers or large purchase orders or any questions, happy to take them.